How to Stop Your Social Anxiety. 7 Little Known Ways. A healing guided meditation. Hello, and welcome to this guided meditation. This meditation is for anyone who struggles with social anxiety. We're going to learn to forgive ourselves and heal from some of the situations and people that have scarred us in the past. We're also going to work through 7 little known strategies that you can integrate into your daily life that will assist you in dealing with your social anxiety. Our current thought patterns are usually what keeps us trapped in the prison of social anxiety. To unlock ourselves from this prison, we will need to rewire our brains with new thoughts that will take time to cement in the brain. But if you try this as a start, it will lead you down the right path, a path toward release from social anxiety. The change won't happen overnight. It's common to try out a strategy, and when it doesn't work, give up. Rewiring the brain can take months, but trying to change your thoughts over months could save you years of unnecessary anxiety. So remember, when you try out any thought change, the brain will initially resist. The only way to overcome brain resistance is with dedicated and repeated practice. Practices like this that we are doing right now. If this guided meditation and others on YouTube are helpful to you, you can come back to them as often as you find helpful. Starting a process that will help us to let go of these feelings often begins with the body. One of the pathways to awakening the heart is to bring our attention to goodness and beauty and where love is. And in this forgiving meditation, we're really bringing our attention to where there has been hurt or threat to our being in some way, and where we have erected a defense. And this really happens to all of us at different parts of our life. Especially early on, These can then manifest into social anxiety as we grow older. There's ways that we've felt hurt or threatened, just like physically having a scab. We created a hardening in the heart, and to in some way keep away the other, but really to keep away the feeling of the pain, the fear, or the threat, or the hurt. And so the pathway to forgiveness is to let go of our defense, of our armoring, and to bring our attention to the places of woundedness. As one Indian teacher says, we move in that direction of not pushing anyone, including any part of ourselves, out of our heart. And if we're honest, we look at how we move through our day and our life. We, in small and sometimes large ways, do push away. You might think to yourself, well, I have no one to forgive. But we can bring this practice to anywhere that we've created separation. Through the most subtle level of judgment to the deepest feeling of hatred and anger. You're not the only person with personal secrets. Every person in a room in which you are standing has at least one secret. And it usually has to do with something that they would not be able to tell anyone. We often make assumptions that we are the only people with secrets, when in fact, it's impossible to meet all social standards for how life is supposed to be. Take in this reality. Because you will realize you are not the only one in the room with a secret. It's been described that the forgiveness meditation clears the way for an unconditional loving heart. A few more words on forgiveness. The biggest misunderstanding I know is when we forgive, that in some way we're condoning, or we're saying, okay, I'm going to be a doormat. Step on me. Do it again. And I want to say forgiveness is a movement in our own heart, not to be armoured, but it doesn't mean in any way We're saying that what you did or what was done to you was justified. In fact, we can do everything within our capabilities to prevent something from happening again, including drawing the boundaries that are necessary, divorcing someone, never seeing someone again. The point is that it's something that happens internally, within our own heart, that either leaves us more armored or more free. So this path of forgiveness is for the liberation of our own hearts, so that we aren't living off of history, but rather free to respond in this moment from a natural tenderness of being. You're more similar than different from other people. We often focus on how different we are because our brains are geared to seek out those differences. But the truth is, if you really pay attention, you will see that externally and internally, we are all much more similar than we may seem. Apart from body parts that we all share, we also share vulnerabilities, moments of anxiety and depression, failures and successes. Remember that the next time you go into a social environment. Insecurity and security are two sides of the same coin. Those who claim to be secure haven't abolished their insecurity. They have simply learned to redirect their attention to their strengths rather than their weaknesses. Brain circuits of opposite emotions are on most of the time. Where you place your attention is what you will feel. It's similar to courage and fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something else is more important. You may have more to say than you think. I often feel socially anxious because I'm afraid that I would have nothing to say. But this happens because I'm constantly thinking of what I should say rather than what I want to say. One thing I found helpful was to collect some icebreakers that I could use when at a party or social gathering, and soon I was able to give myself permission to speak spontaneously. In reality, many other people at these parties feel the same kind of nervousness that you do. Some suggestions of icebreakers include, "Hi, how are you? I have no approach question. Just thought it would be better to connect than stand alone and drink my wine." This will often get a giggle and can start a great conversation. "How are you? I love your shoes, pocketbook, dress, tie." Compliments like this can set the tone for a positive start. Anxiety makes us focus on the negative more. So often, if you're socially anxious, you may think that you hate people. But when you have that sensation, recognize that your thoughts are being formed by your anxiety. To feel more positive, do something positive before you go out. Get a massage if you can, and then go out. Or play an invigorating sport. Or work out. This will place you in the right frame of mind to start interacting in the social event. Social anxiety is a form of personal discomfort. Social anxiety is not really social at all, but more about our own personal dissatisfaction. So ask yourself, how can I be more self-accepting? To be self-accepting requires that you see that perfection doesn't exist, and that your humanity is worth interacting with. This includes your strengths and weaknesses. Shyness can sometimes be appealing. Being an interior person can be seductive. Outgoing people create comfort. Introverted people often invite intimacy. Many of our fears are unconscious, but often, if we contemplate these kinds of changes consciously, it can change the unconscious wiring and lead to a much more fulfilling life. So we'll practice together a forgiveness meditation that includes forgiving others and ourselves. A nice way to begin, as with many of the meditations we do, is to take some moments to scan through your body. See if there is any way to relax just a little bit more, to let go just a little bit more in terms of your musculature. Perhaps letting the shoulders relax back and down. Softening there. Letting the hands be soft, easy. Softening the belly, letting the breath be received deep in the torso. Relaxing your face. It's very, very valuable to check the eyes, because we unconsciously tense around the brows, tighten, so just soften the eyes. Let the brow be smooth. You can imagine a curve of a smile spreading through the eyes, a bit of an up tilt at the corner of the eyes. If that's helpful, slight smile at the mouth. I like to begin with an intention, just to sense your sincerity in whatever language is true for you. That attention to have this heart be awake and free. We begin by bringing to mind a particular situation where we've caused injury to another person, where we have in some way, intentionally or unintentionally, harmed someone with our words, our actions, or inaction. Each of us can usually find these situations they may be recent. It may be repeating currently. It may be historical. When you find such a situation, let that person's face, their look, be right in front of you, so you can almost sense that he or she is here, and allow yourself to take some moments to sense the hurt that's been caused. Be mindful of your own experience as you bear witness. If you find you go into remorse, you can note that. If it's guilt or something tighter, name it. Just name it. If it's shame, name it. Let the intention be to bear witness and simply to care. To mentally whisper the person's name. You whisper the person's name and say, "I see and feel the pain that I've caused you, and I ask for forgiveness. Please forgive me." You see and feel the pain I've caused you, and I ask your forgiveness. May I be forgiven now. See if you can open to the possibility of feeling forgiven. Is that possible? See if you can imagine feeling forgiven. We now bring our attention to forgiving ourselves, and to sense where you may not be forgiving yourself for something, in some deep way not accepting yourself, judging, blaming, resenting. And it may be for this thing that you were just reflecting on, the way you have hurt this other person. It may be for some other ways that you've caused injury to yourself or to another person. If you're having trouble, you might say to yourself, "It's hard to forgive myself for," and just see what comes to mind. And for many of us, there are a number of things. Just to choose something that you'd like to bring your attention to right now. And take some moments to sense what makes this particular way that you've been, that you've behaved or spoken, acted, unforgivable or unacceptable. Again, it may be that you see the harm that's caused. And then to bring your attention in a deeper way, just sense what might have been driving that behavior. What is the fear? What is the pain? What is the confusion? Perhaps ignorance, perhaps deep wanting, unmet need. It may have driven that you were judging. Look through the eyes of wisdom now. If it's hard to see through your own eyes, look through the eyes of the most understanding and kind spiritual being, or your grandmother, a friend, and see what might have been driving you. Sensing the way you've been pushing your own being out of your heart. These moments to offer self-forgiveness. Again, you might sense yourself. Sense that part of you. I've pushed that own part of my being away, and I forgive myself now. If not yet ready to forgive myself, it's my intention to forgive myself, to not reject any part of my being. And for those of you who feel open to it, it's helpful to place your hand on your heart, in some way communicating that forgiveness, not just with words, but actually with a lightness and tenderness of touch. Even if you're at the stage of simply It's my intention to forgive. I can't do it now. That touch will help to bring it more into a realness, a real communication with your own spirit. You might just use the words forgiven, forgiven, and with whatever comes up right now, just to offer those words can begin to create a tenderness and space in your heart. Perhaps you feel numb and cut off right now. Forgiven, forgiven. Maybe you feel sleepy and haven't been following the meditation. Forgiven, forgiven. Maybe you feel utterly unable to contemplate forgiving yourself. Forgiven, forgiven. Maybe you just feel shame or badness. Forgiven, forgiven. Continuing to bring attention to your own heart. And now you might push away parts of your being, offering this simple act of forgiving, of letting go, of opening with compassion to your own being again and again. So that nothing is outside of this realm of forgiven, forgiven. The words of Rumi: be ground, be crumpled, so wild flowers will come up where you are. You've been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender. To forgive is to surrender your armor. To forgive anything that separates you and your heart from loving. We now widen the circle to bring to mind someone who has caused injury to us. And for each of us, we've had the experience of being in some way hurt, rejected, betrayed, sometimes abused. Now I encourage you to not bring up something to mind that has a lot of trauma around it, but to bring to mind some circumstance where you are feeling unforgiving towards another person where you've created distance, or you've pushed that person out of your heart. Some situation, some person that you'd like to explore opening. As you bring the person and situation to mind, allow yourself to move close in so you can be remembering really the pain of it, what it is that caused you to feel anger, resentment, blame, that caused you to in some way want to create distance. The first step in forgiving others is really bringing compassion to our own being. Within the place of wounding within us. So let yourself feel, as much as is possible, the hurt, the wound, whatever it is that has been caused by this person. Remind yourself of what they did or said, how they treated you. And sense if you couldn't be pushing away with anger, what you'd have to feel. Is it rejection? Or hurt, being invisible, dismissed, threatened, at risk. And as you get in touch with whatever is underneath the anger, the aversion to the other, let these moments be ones of holding company with your own being, with your own hurt, offering compassion and care inward. Again, if it helps, you might place your hand on your heart and just keep company with the wounded place, the place that's been hurt. Sometimes it helps to feel that you're being supported by a loving being beyond your own self. That's helpful too, that you can feel the Buddha or Jesus, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, somebody that you know personally, their energy supporting you. Their comfort and compassion coming through that hand to your heart also. Just offering yourself whatever words really express that compassion. Some of the classic ones are, I care about this suffering. Or one I like, which is, I'm sorry and I love you. Hold the hurting place with kindness. As you begin to sense a compassion, caring, kindness, holding your own heart, then sense the feeling of looking through the eyes of compassion, sensing that field of compassion extending now to the other person that hurt you. And see if you can see behind their actions the same vulnerability, the same fear, hurt, confusion, ignorance that drives all behavior that causes harm. We cause suffering because we're feeling suffering, even if we're conscious of it or we're not. To look through the eyes of compassion, and then the classic words of forgiveness. You can try them out. To mentally whisper the person's name and say, I see and feel the pain that you've caused me, and I forgive you now. Or if not ready to forgive, it's my intention to forgive you. See and feel the hurt you've caused me, and I forgive you now. Or if not ready to forgive, it's my intention to forgive you. sensing the sincere longing in your own heart to open, to include, to love well. And letting go of your thoughts of this other person and coming back to the full experience right here. To scan through your body again. Establish a fuller presence as possible. Feel your breath. Feel your heart. A common occurrence in a forgiveness practice is to feel on some level that we're not doing it right, that we should be able to forgive more, that we should be more present for it. There's a lot of shoulds, so it's quite appropriate and beautiful at the end of this practice to again say, forgiven, forgiven. That however this practice emerged for you, to trust the goodness of it, to trust your own sincerity about awakening, to trust the heart to unfold naturally to freedom. Forgiven, forgiven. And then just notice the state of your heart right now, with honesty, without judgment. Just holding this life right here with compassion. And sensing the possibility of this compassion spreading out in all directions. Really exploring this pathway, this really courageous pathway of freeing and awakening our hearts. Including those that are nearby, and then in widening circles, outward and outward, surrendering our armory and discovering our edgeless heart that can embrace this world